Power on.
Earth, 2018. The alliance between governments and tech giants has led to the rise of the surveillance society, distraction technology, the attention wars, and the erosion of your mind. But one show stands against this insidious system. Hosted by the podcast champion, the man of tomorrow, the golden stallion of the tech world, Brian Sovryn. He and his co-hosts form the intellectual resistance. It's time for Sovryn Tech.
You're dressing all in black, from your front to your back, and all your evil ways, they seem to go on for days, and as a matter of fact, you got one. Smash it up, burn it down, tearing up the underground. You wanna live like a super villain, back in the lineup before your time's up. You wanna live like a super villain. Alright. You've been knocking down these doors, you've been filling up this room. You run around the place like your name was Dr. Doom. You're a killer of culture, a vulture of style, and it won't be that long before you end up on trial. You're gonna smash it up, burn it down, tearing up the underground. You wanna live like a super villain, back in the lineup before your time's up. You wanna live like a super villain.
Woo, baby! I know. Look, I'm sorry. I have to open up with an apology. I am so sorry, okay, that your wife or your girlfriend, significant other is coming up to you and saying, baby, why can't you just be more like the Golden Stallion? I'm sorry, okay? Look, I'm just doing my show, okay? I'm just doing my show. I'm just doing my job, goddammit. The repercussions of that... What am I? So how can I control this? I don't know. Well, it is. And don't get jealous. It is the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow. Savzu, the rated R. Radio star. The thriller that is Savzilla, baby. Ready for, wow, this is going to be a little bit of a surprise for some people, but maybe not for all of you, because I announced it last week that starting as of this week, Sovryn Tech is moving back. Now I say moving back to a 1 hour format. And this is the very first episode that is going to take advantage of that 1 hour format, where we're just going to get right into things. Okay. No bullshit. And we're just going to get right into talking about the stories of the week. We're going to get into HackSec. We still got your online review of the week. I know everybody's been loving those over the past month. That's going to keep on going. And we're going to get into the Climax. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about. And honestly, we got some sexy to get into a little later on. It's going to be pretty interesting. So why waste time, baby? It is your 1 hour. This is, I don't know, what did Rush Limbaugh used to say? Remember that asshat? What did he used to say? Something like the fastest hour in television, or not in television, on radio, on whatever the fuck he used to say. Anyway, we are going to blaze through this stuff because we have so much to get into. Well, hold on. Someone just came in the studio. They did what? No, I'm not going to go out then. What the hell? I just got done saying that I'm not. No, my heart's already well taken. Sorry. Go. What the fuck? All right. Look, this is a tech show. Well, kind of. Anyway, lots of tech to get into in this episode, and we're going to get into some philosophical stuff too a little later on, which we love to dalliance in the ethics. Maybe do a little more than dalliance in them, and maybe we'll concentrate on that a little bit going forward. But anyway, regardless, let's start breaking into this stuff. Kind of some of the biggest news, and let's be clear here. This is big news in the tech world. You might think, yeah, but what, does this only has 2% as far as market share? How could that be big news? Let's be clear here. The most important piece of software, whether I like it or not, and maybe I don't, but the most important piece of software out there that anybody uses right now is certainly the web browser, right? I mean, that's where really security should be paramount. That's where standards should be getting followed, blah, 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 or getting developed, becoming standards, etc. All of that. It's certainly a huge deal. So even when something like, and, save your collective laughter, even when something like Edge, like Microsoft Edge, decides to change things up a bit, we should still pay attention to that because, again, there aren't that many web browsers out there. I mean, well, there's links. There aren't that many web browsers out there. And actually getting 2% market share, I know a lot of web browsers that, even though there aren't that many out there, I know a lot of them that would love to have that kind of market share as far as usage goes. But anyway, some interesting news. Certainly, I mean, I really think this is actually huge news. And we talked about this a little bit on a Patreon episode on the Wednesday Q&A when it was just being theorized, but then it ended up getting confirmed by Microsoft itself that they are going to shift Microsoft Edge to using the Blink engine, to being Chromium based. Okay. Chromium, of course, is the open source project that Google Chrome is based upon. Now, let's be clear here. 95% of Google Chrome is Chromium. All right. But there is that 5% that is proprietary, that is not open source within Google Chrome. That's not completely open source. Edge will probably end up being a very similar situation where a good chunk of it is based on Chromium, but then the actual user interface, which will still exist. It's not like, Microsoft's not giving up and saying, okay, here, everything can go to Google Chrome. Microsoft Edge is still going to exist. In fact, with it using Chromium now, they are going to port it. And this is the part that might be the strangest. Now, it's not so strange that because of this, they're planning on releasing Microsoft Edge for macOS. That's not so weird, right? I mean, Edge already exists on iOS and it exists on Android, which, granted, on both of those, it's using Chromium, of all things, okay, or the Blink engine, depending on, these terms aren't exactly interchangeable, but you get my point. And, that alone makes it not so weird. But here's where it does get weird. Is they're going to release Edge for Windows 7 and Windows 8.1? That's the part that kind of blows my mind. Like, it seemed like Microsoft was whole hog. No, everybody's got to get over to Windows 10. We're going to give it to you for free. Like, everybody upgrade to Windows 10. Get the fuck off of Windows 7. We're tired of supporting it. Now, it's one thing to continue to release security patches for Windows 7 and Windows 8.1 or something. It's a whole other fucking thing to backport your, quote unquote, state of the art web browser to go back to those. I'm baffled, okay? I'm really, really baffled. Now, I think most people wonder, wait a minute, why the fuck is Microsoft even bothering making a web browser today when Google Chrome is, seems to be very clearly dominant? It's between Chrome and Firefox and blah, blah, blah. Like, why are they even bothering? Look, you can't, if you are a tech giant, you pretty much... You can't give up on the web browser. The web browser, like we were saying at the opening of the episode, it is the most important piece of software out there. It's more important than the operating system, obviously. Okay? Just unquestionably. The only reason people, I think, half the people are willing to go on to Linux, I wish they all would, but the more, or Linux or BSD or whatever, okay, the reason half the people are willing to even do that is because you can run either Chrome, Google Chrome or Firefox on there. Now, Microsoft's not talking about porting it to Linux. Boy, hell, that would have been interesting. And it's not like they couldn't. I mean, Opera works in Linux, and that's not 100% open source, and that uses the Blink engine as well. It's Chromium based. It has been for some years now. But really, this is the same thing. Like, why doesn't Apple stop making Safari? How many people even use Safari, even though I think Safari is a damned fine web browser? You just, again, as a tech giant, you can't give that up. You have to make that available. You've got to have that for people there by default, or you're just going to lose it. Because, again, most people don't even care about the operating system anymore. They really don't. So this move on Microsoft's part, it's kind of shocking, and I don't know if it's going to be implemented by, 19H1 or 19H1 is the next version of Windows 10 that'll be coming out in the spring, or maybe will come out in the spring. If you remember what happened with the April 2018 update, that'll come out in the spring of 2019. We'll see. If it ends up getting implemented for that. But I think that there could be a lot of advantages to this. For one, still, there could be good arguments for using this, even though it's Chromium. It's not taking advantage of Edge HTML, which was the original rendering engine that Edge had, which is kind of a sequel to, what was it? Trident, right? Was the one for Internet Explorer. This, you're still going to have the ability where Microsoft has been able to sandbox Edge. That's still going to be an interesting, security component. And granted, Google Chrome is kind of sandboxed as well, but it's more than it's sandboxed with Microsoft Edge. Microsoft Edge in Windows 10 can actually run as a virtual machine, as a VM. So yeah, I mean, overall, this is just going to be a better thing. How many people are even really using Edge anyway? I do understand, like, I know that the head of Mozilla has come out and said, oh, this is terrible, that Microsoft is doing this because now we're getting a monoculture of really web standards and all this. And look, I am totally behind that. I totally get that. Okay, that whole argument. And you really do want diversity because that's where things will kind of come out of nowhere. Like great ideas will come up because you're approaching it from a completely different perspective, right? Like if you're developing Edge HTML and you're not using Blink or Chromium, you can, you're going to come up with something that might be really, really ingenious out of nowhere. Like that's the beauty of diversity, right? And I understand that, but then at the same time, like, I mean, I guess Mozilla's complaint more is that they're running with Chromium, which it's a problem when you go to like a W3C meeting, right? Which is the web browser standards body, or one of the standards bodies out there about open source. It is a problem at those meetings that Google, because they are the main contributor to Chromium code, and so many web browsers are now based on Chromium, like Opera and now Edge, and Google Chrome and so on, that they have like they have veto power at these meetings, for web standards, because they are the main people behind the main rendering engine in the world. I mean, that's more of a concern, but like Mozilla, come on. Last year you dumped Gecko, and now you're using Quantum or whatever. I mean, so they wanted to change it up. You knew you had to change it up too. I mean, they're acting within their self-interest. I'm not defending Microsoft at all. Just listen to last week's episode if you want to see how much I don't fucking defend Microsoft. Okay, but I get what they're going with here. They're like, well, this is what we need to do, And really, this is the same thing Apple was doing for a long time. I mean, because before Google switched to Blink, which is just a fork of WebKit, they were developing WebKit for Chromium, and that's what Safari uses was WebKit. So, you'd have to yell kind of retroactively at Apple, right, for basing everything off of the same thing that Google was doing at the time, but you don't. So I'm just saying that this makes sense. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, to be pragmatic about it, like to get away from Google, but still use, because Chrome is so dominant, because Chromium is so dominant as far as with developers, to be able to use a web browser that doesn't engage in all the privacy encroaching bullshit that Google Chrome is particularly egregious for. I'm not saying Microsoft is any better, but to be able to use that, that rendering engine without having to use Google Chrome is a fine and dandy thing. Okay, and that's why I've recommended even using Opera. We might end up talking about that later during HackSec and so on, even though I know it's not open source. And of course, I recommend open source first and foremost. Okay, things are, I kind of feel like things are looking a little ugly for Firefox, I have to admit. I'm a little concerned, and like there was a lot of initial like uptick when Quantum came out, but then maybe the standards just aren't all coming together quick enough for people, and they're finding that this web page acts fluky and so on, and we might end up really with a monoculture where everything is Chromium based. And I mean, I don't think Firefox is going to go anywhere because they do so many other things, but let's be clear here, like on. So on iOS, they don't actually use Chromium. You have to use WebKit, but it's kind of a base of that, right? So, already on iOS, which is one of the most popular platforms in the world, if you want to use Firefox is not using the Quantum engine, right? Or, rendering engine. So, they're already kind of conceding, just like Microsoft was already conceding on mobile platforms that, okay, we're not going to port Edge HTML to these, So, yeah, this is something that can happen. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'll tell you, if you're worried about this, like it kind of feels, the argument I don't think is striking at the root. If you're concerned about, about a web browser, and about a monoculture with web browsing, I think you're missing the point that there might be a real concern with web browsing in and of itself, like that the fact that your computer is so reliant upon that one piece of software. That should be far more concerning than actually what is the web browser itself doing, or what's happening under the hood on the web browser. But they're completely missing that point. Something else that's going on, also this has led to where, and this is kind of interesting, that Microsoft has come out and confirmed that they do want all Google, like all extensions that are designed to work with Google Chrome, they would like that to be able to work with Microsoft Edge. Now, some people are saying, well, that's not going to happen because if Microsoft there's hearsay, okay, that Microsoft is wanting people to publish their, they won't, because Edge will become Chromium based, nobody has to really change their code base at all to put it into the Microsoft Store, but they're going to have to put it into the Microsoft Store for it to be able to get installed on Microsoft Edge, on the Chromium-based Microsoft Edge. I think that would be a mistake, and I think the better route to go would be for, just like with Opera, there's an extension that you can put in from the Opera add-on store, effectively, that will let you just install anything from, or just about anything, from the Chrome Web Store. That's really the route you're going to want to go. I could understand where Microsoft might not want to do that because of security purposes, because again, if they want to run Edge still, even though it's Chromium based, in a virtual machine, okay, and also, to have that sandbox feature, yeah, it might have to go through the portal of the Microsoft Web Store. I don't know how that's going to work out. I mean, if anything, have a team at Microsoft just say to the developers of all of these different, apps, here, we'll port it for you. I mean, if you want to get any kind of meaningful usage for Microsoft Edge, that's pretty much what they're going to have to do. So we'll see what this does for anything. I think if it's still, because people, even if they used Microsoft Edge, they're still going to log into their Google account. If you made it to where they could just get it through the Chrome Web Store, I'm not saying that that's how I want things to be. I'm just saying that if Microsoft wanted to actually get market share greater than 2% in the web browser game, that's really what they need to do. Of course, the other part of this is that probably, a lot of this has to do with, ARM-based Windows PCs. I mean, that's certainly a big part of this, but that's a conversation we've already talked about. And I think that that's a category in computing that still is going to become a very big thing. And it's just the very early goings with that. And Microsoft, I think this move is really all about that, in Windows 10S and having that security and honestly taking on Chromebooks. So, but let's move on to another story for our stories of the week here. Kind of a fitting conversation. While you're web browsing, well, what do you do with a web browser? You go and watch porn. All right, first off, if you're going to do that, you better activate a fucking VPN. You hear me? Okay. But regardless of that, this came in from a Sovryn Tech patron of all things. And if you want to become a Sovryn Tech patron, of course, go to sovryn.to.com, get your hookup, get access to thousands of hours of exclusive content that's on there, including extra whole podcast series like user podcasts and game talk and so on. All kinds of great shit to get there. Anyway, this is from BuzzFeed News. Starbucks, and this is from November 29th, so just a few days ago, 2018. Starbucks will ban porn on its free Wi-Fi in all U.S. stores next year. Let's read the story. Starbucks will block customers in all U.S. stores from using its free Wi-Fi to watch porn next year. The news was first reported by Business Insider. Watching porn in Starbucks was always banned, but the company did not actively block pornographic content on its in-store Wi-Fi. In a statement on Wednesday, Starbucks said, quote, "While it rarely occurs, the use of Starbucks public Wi-Fi to view illegal or egregious content is not, nor has it ever been, permitted. We have identified a solution to prevent this content from being viewed within our stores, and we will begin introducing it to our U.S. locations in 2019, end quote. There are no further details about this solution as yet, but Starbucks told Business Insider that the company tested multiple tools to prevent accidentally blocking inoffensive websites. If you were wondering who watches porn at a coffee shop, you aren't alone. Starbucks is, yeah, and there's a couple tweets in there. And all right, look, I could stop there. And exactly, like, who... I've gone in many a Starbucks. Okay, like I really have. Who the hell is like, I've never seen anybody like jerking off in a Starbucks. Who the fuck is doing this? I'm not against porn. I think porn is or not all porn, but a good chunk of porn can be a fine and wonderful thing. And whatever you're into, you're into. We're all freaks here. Okay, we can wave our flags, but I don't know many people that wave their flag in Starbucks. You know, I mean, you're just looking wall to wall at Apple computers when you walk into one of those damn things. And I have it under good authority that Apple users do not engage in sexual acts, nor do they even have sex, even though, you know, some hacks on iCloud would say differently. And that, you know, but I mean, like, look, you look in the App Store on iOS, there's no porn apps there. There's nothing remotely like that. Even if you showed a nipple on an icon or something, I mean, they delete it. So I was under the impression that, you know, like no Apple computers themselves were porn free. I'm stunned by this news. I'm being facetious a bit here, but regardless, yeah, who the hell is watching porn at Starbucks? I mean, Starbucks can do this fine, and it's easy enough to get around. Like I said, probably running, I mean, I don't know what their solutions are that they're going with, running a VPN or even going through Tor or something like that. I mean, there's easy ways to get around this on their Wi-Fi networks, okay? But why would you? I mean, I get it that this is news, but it's just, you know what this feels like? Let me tell you what this feels like, what this is really about. Because seriously, I don't think anybody's doing this. Okay, now, well, all right, hold on. So I know that on this show, there have been times where there has been some very uncensored content that has disturbed many a people, even though my affiliates never dropped me once for it, even though they'd email them or call them. But you know, I know there's been some moaning and some sexy and some lewd acts, perhaps that at least were acted, you know, as in acting or whatever, you know, on the show, and maybe somebody had Sovryn Tech playing out loud. I know that's happened in coffee shops, and somebody might have heard some moaning or something, but it's not exactly porn. But regardless, I mean, I guess that kind of stuff has occurred. I can't imagine who the hell would actually do this again, but what I think could be happening here is this is really just about, this is marketing. Really, I think this is Starbucks appealing to certain crowds, saying we're taking a stand against porn. We are taking a stand against the you know, bad treatment of women. We are doing this. And hey, I am not saying I've been on porn sets. I know how badly women do get treated on those. I'm not arguing against that. But I think that's really what this is. I don't think that this was actually a problem. Okay. I mean, you know, it'd be great. Hey, look, I am all about a world where people are completely open about sexuality and, you know, whatever. Hell, people could walk around nude and all that. I mean, you know, in my perfect world, that would kind of be order of the day. And, you know, a lot of what you see in porn would probably pretty light shit. I don't know. But my point being is that in this world, I still don't think this is happening. I don't think this is remotely happening. And again, it really just does come down to marketing. This is them. It looks good. It looks like they're taking some kind of stance. Maybe it makes their employees feel better or something like that, even though I know some Starbucks employees, and you want to talk about freaks. And I say that with, you know, I say not, that's not a pejorative. That's a compliment. Okay. I know some of them. I mean, they are freaks. Woo. And I get a little hot around the collar. But, yeah, I can't see it. That's really what this is about. This is not actually a problem, though. You can email me. Tell you what, you email me and you tell me where you walked into a Starbucks and holy shit, you saw somebody was on RedTube or Pornhub or something like that. And I don't know, they were watching Joanna Angel picking a lemon or something. I mean, go ahead. You tell me that whole deal. All right. And I'll read it on the show. Okay. So anyway, we'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Always, first thing, you know, whenever you see a story where you just go, well, that doesn't make any sense, the first thing I want you to think is, how could this be used to market whoever this is about? And then you're going to get to the reality of the situation, and then it'll make sense. I'll be right back with more Sovryn Tech. Woo! Hey, baby, I know. You are tired of Gmail. You have had enough. Well, I have a solution for you. What I want you to do is you go to Fastmail, okay? It's Fastmail.zog.ninja. That's the URL you can use. You're going to get a discount with that. You are going to love this. This is email for email's sake. This company does nothing more. Just email, and they do it right. All the latest security technologies. You want to log into your account with your YubiKey? You can do that. Fastmail has your hookup. Very inexpensive plans. I want you to check it out. You go to fastmail.sovryn.com. That'll get you the hookup, and it's an honor to have them as a part of Sovryn Tech. Woo! Let's get back to the show.
HackSec.
It is time for HackSec, where we talk issues of hacking and security, and of course on this show, hackers are heroes, baby. And you know, I'll tell you, you might not think about this platform in the first place, but this is probably, to me in my life, this is maybe my most important device. I love this thing, and so I want it to have the absolute latest in security. And so if you want to, We're up to software version 11.9.0-42. Woo, meaning of life. Or the answer to the question of life, the universe, and everything, right? But yeah, we're up to that version, and of course we are talking about none other than the greatest device on the planet Earth today, that being the Nintendo 3DS. No, really, folks, do update your Nintendo 3DS, or if you have the 2DS XL. If you have a device in the 3DS family, you're going to want to get this updated. It is actually an update, not that it does anything major, but it is designed to prevent certain exploits. So you might want to do that, and you say, well, how are there even exploits against that? You would be amazed. So anyway, go ahead and get that update. Another thing that's been updated, Telegram is now up to version 5.0. That feels like a huge shift, like going up to version 5, which is amazing to consider. But there's like the new Instant View for web pages in Instant View 2.0 that keeps the web pages kind of sandboxed within the Telegram ecosystem. And this allows for better compatibility with certain things that websites might have. Like when you go to zog.email, which is my main website, there is JavaScript, of course, for the SoundCloud player that allows you to listen to episodes right on the page. Instant View 2.0 would allow for, say, that to be compatible, as to where 1.0 it would not have been. So you do want to update Telegram as soon as you can. Of course, anytime there's an update with these more secure messaging services like Telegram or Signal and so on, which those are the main two really that I only ever bother to recommend, even though Telegram's encryption, yeah, right? We've talked about that many times. Regardless, those are the ones that I recommend using at any given moment. So you want to keep them up to date as much as possible. So version 5.0 is out. It did some little changes with your profile and everything, which, I mean, all that's nice, but yeah, it's just to make it easier to navigate, I guess. But there it is. That's out there. Google, speaking of social media, because I've always told you, regardless of the, as far as the encryption goes, okay, and the security of Telegram, it just, don't think of it as like, don't send messages that you're basing, that are like life threatening or where your life is on the line about it. Okay. But it is a great alternative to most social media out there. Even though it doesn't have all the features that we want, it is a great alternative. And of course, there are a lot of interesting features like Telegram Passport and so on that are getting developed, and that we've talked about briefly in the past. Regardless, I do see it as the alternative. And well, since Google Plus is shutting down, what are you going to do? Yes. Google Plus is now actually going to get shut down even sooner. Of course, there was that, they talked about the exploit that happened with the API bug that they found back in March of 2018 that they didn't tell anybody about until October, months later. Well, it turns out about a month ago, and they fixed it within the preceding week or the following week, but a month ago, there was another API bug that allowed anybody, who knew about the bug, and of course they said they didn't see where anybody had access to it. Through this API bug, any information you put on Google Plus was available for the person who was able to exploit the bug to see it. And so now, originally they were going to shut down Google Plus on August of 2019. Now they've bumped it up to April 2019. They just can't wait to kill this thing off. So, and hey, great. Like the last thing we need is another fucking, social media platform. I mean, the fewer the better. In fact, we can get that right down to 0 and I'd feel better in life. So, and, use Telegram. It's up to version 5.0. Anyway, something else that's kind of interesting and that I want to bring up briefly during HackSec here in the last few minutes. So Japan, the government of Japan, is reportedly planning to boycott highway and ZTE equipment as far as for government use. Now, they're not banning it from like your everyday person in Japan to use it, but as far as within government use, and this is similar to a boycott that the U.S. has engaged in and so on. In fact, Highway, their CFO, was arrested in Canada. She was visiting Canada, and she got arrested, and apparently it's because Highway broke like U.S. sanctions as far as trading with Iran, which is pretty fucking ridiculous because, again, you're just talking about getting cheap devices to Iranian people, not the Iranian government, the Iranian people. The Iranian people are very metropolitan, look, the kids going around, they look like skateboarder kids. I mean, I don't know. Whatever. People don't travel the world and they don't actually see that everybody really is in many ways just like everybody else. There's extremists all over the place. There's fucking extremists in America, you understand? I don't mean Muslim. I mean like American patriotic extremists. Okay, obviously, they got a president in office, these fucks. So But you get my point. Okay, I think that this is ridiculous to come out and say, oh, well, we got to ban what Huawei and ZTE are putting out there. And what, you're going to let some American company sell products to you in Japan or in some other country? Like because the claim is that Huawei and ZTE are flag-waving Chinese companies. Okay, that they are somehow like an arm of the government. Newsflash, AT&T is an arm of the U.S. government, and yes, they are. They have a revolving door for the NSA and the CIA, whoever the fuck else needs any of their data to walk right in. Okay, every government does this to every other, nation state and to every citizenry around the world. To somehow say, well, we can't let China do this. What, you're going to let the Americans then? I mean, like, everybody does this. It's... It's the pot calling the kettle black. I mean, literally, and to some degree, if you're somebody that lives in a country other than China, well, at least the Chinese local police aren't going to come and, lock you up for breaking whatever stupid law happens to be out there. And there's plenty of stupid ones in America. But if you use an American company's shit, that can happen. Like, it's almost a benefit to use... to use something that's like, I think I've said this before, like with Opera, that's decentralizing your data, right? If you're like, well, don't use Opera because it's run by a Chinese company and the Chinese government's collecting all that data. Well, better them than your own home country collecting all that data about you, because the home country's the one that can use it against you, right? I mean, I'm being kind of ridiculous, but this whole thing's ridiculous. I mean, could it be happening? Could Huawei and ZTE be actually spying on people for the Chinese government? Sure. But then if that's a problem, why is it? You tell me the argument for why it's a problem that China is, and then I'm going to ask you, okay, so then let's be consistent about our principles here as far as why that's a problem for the Chinese government. That should also be a problem for the U.S. government, who's doing the same goddamn thing. It should also be a problem for the Canadian government, for the Russian government. Pick your government. They're all doing it. So if it's wrong for them, it's wrong for everybody else too. And last time I checked, for all you people that get all hot and bothered about the war on terror, it doesn't, like, it's not, because I think the argument would be that, well, China, I mean, like, they have a big military, this data really could be used against us, it's a very genuine problem. But then you're also saying in the same breath, if you're the U.S. government, that, well, but even 5 people or even 1 person in Afghanistan is a problem. Like, which is it? I mean, the numbers game, as I'm being told, doesn't matter anymore in our modern world as far as threats go and as far as dangers go. That's what we are told, okay, by the U.S. government itself. So just don't. If you're going to complain about one, you got to complain about them all. You might just, hell, do what the Russian government does. The Russian government, we talked about this like 5 years ago on Sovryn Tech. This is even before, I think, the Snowden revelations. The Russian government was switching back to using typewriters for government communications. Typewriters. They're going to send memos. Typewritten, not a word processor, they weren't even going to do laptops. Like I say on this show, yeah, dump your fucking smartphone. Screw that shit. I mean, it's just a block of sensors tracking you everywhere you go. Doesn't matter what company makes it, whether it's Huawei, ZTE, or Samsung, or, Scamsung, you call it. And I say use your laptop more, because at least that's not transmitting every little goddamn thing. And you have a lot more options with software where maybe you can have a little more control with that, VPNs, Tor, and so on. Okay, I know you can run those on a mobile device too, but there's other challenges that come with that as far as on a mobile device, regardless. Okay? That's what I say. Now, in Russia, they're not even saying use the laptops. They're going even further than I ever tell you to do. They're just saying, oh, no, we're just going to go right back to typewriters that, hell, they might not even be electric. I mean, they're all kind of electric, but you get my point. They don't connect to anything, blah, blah, blah. Do that. If you're concerned about Huawei and ZTE, don't say, well, just don't use those smartphones. Just say, all right, we're getting rid of smartphones all entirely. That's how you be consistent with that argument. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. This is like economic pinball, okay, that you, as the average consumer, just like you have no control over this and you have no say in this, and it means honestly nothing to you. So if you are concerned, oh, the Japanese government's not using Huawei or ZTE anymore, I better not use it either. No, this has nothing to do with that, because every company's doing this. Every company's engaging in this. It's happening across the board. So use your shit. Okay. Try and lock it down as best you can, but don't act like there's one nation state actor better than the other as far as any of this goes. So I think it's horseshit. The whole thing, this is political marketing that's going on. Everything's marketing. Well, this is political marketing. Anyway, I'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech.
From Big Finish Productions, Blake 7, The Classic Audio Adventures.
I'm taking Liberator in on manual. We'll be in teleport range in 2 minutes.
What the hell was that?
Information. Liberator has been attacked.
You don't say.
Put up the force wall.
Confirm.
Message to all ground commanders. Initiate the final phase. Let's crush these rebels once and for all.
My name is Avon. Kerr Avon.
Kerr Avon.
Our hostage arrives. But you may be unnecessary.
As a hostage, it's nice to be superfluous.
You can go to blake7.com to find more of the new adventures of one of science fiction's greatest masterpieces, Blake 7, at blake7.com.
This week in blockchain.
It's time to talk some blockchains, baby. And I know not many people want to talk about blockchains. Why? Because it is a bloodbath out there. People are sweating. If you knew, like, some of the inside scoops that I am not going to share with you because I have integrity. And, when somebody tells me don't tell anybody, I actually don't tell anybody. You don't get that often in the blockchain space, but you get it from me. But let me just say, shit's ugly. Okay, I mean, that's all I'm going to put out there, not even telling you remotely who I'm talking about, but it is an ugly situation out there. And some people are wondering and asking, maybe a little bit bigger Bitcoin luminaries. I wouldn't begin to call myself a blockchain or Bitcoin luminary, even though I've spoken at many conferences, some big conferences at that. But particularly, so this is a story from Forbes that got sent in to me by a listener, and this has some quotes from CZ, who is the head of Binance, somebody who does get asked a lot of questions about this. He was actually forwarding the question to his followers on Twitter saying, okay, what do you think is going to cause the next Bitcoin or blockchain, bull run? Like what's going to make this, what's going to get us back to where we were at, say, the end of 2017, right? When we did, went through 2017, Bitcoin did 1,000 up to 20,000. Now, real quick, I'm going to say, yeah, we're in crypto winter right now, as everybody calls it. No doubt about that. But, the snow does melt. Okay, it really does. And I still firmly stand by my own prediction, as well as Tim Draper had a similar prediction. We had a similar prediction a few years ago that we called independently. I still completely stand by the fact that, yeah, we could be looking at $250,000 a coin by 2022. For Bitcoin itself, to say nothing of what everything that's going on in Bitcoin Cash. Holy shit. But anyway, somebody had an interesting comment as far as that goes. And the comment was that, well, here, let me read a little bit of the story from Forbes. It's talking about how, well, anyway, it's saying how we're in crypto winter, blah, blah, blah. But many Bitcoin, this is the story, but many Bitcoin and crypto faithful are eagerly looking towards the next Bitcoin price bull run, which they remain confident will come eventually. Stanley breaking in, I completely agree. Now, the chief executive of major global Bitcoin and cryptocurrency exchange Binance, CZ, has said he expects Jeff Bezos' online retail giant Amazon to be the catalyst for the next Bitcoin bull run. And well, here, let me read the quote. Quote, easier to bring crypto to Bezos, end quote, CZ tweeted in response to a tweet that was saying, if we could get Bezos to end up buying everything out, whatever. Yeah, this is when you, or they told CZ, they said, hey, you buy all the Bitcoins, right? And then we'll get that bull run. And he said, oh, no, Bezos, he's like, I can't, but Jeff Bezos could buy every Bitcoin out there because Jeff Bezos is apparently the richest guy, on the planet, depending upon the day. But it goes on to talk about how in this story, how they are really, saying, eventually, Bezos is going to have to get on the cryptocurrency train, and that Amazon is going to have to get on the cryptocurrency train, and that will be what allows for the next bull run, is that once Amazon makes firmer moves to accept digital tokens, they think, they think that will bring in the confidence that is presently seeping out of the market. And that's the basic gist of the story. So I don't have to read the whole thing. It's a little lengthy, but this is a point I've had to bring up and debunk and talk about many times, okay? Bezos might get into the digital token space, and in many ways they already have. There's already an Amazon coin that is used for digital apps and so on, and that is run by Amazon. Okay, it's not a blockchain, even though blockchain is already a part of, or deploying blockchain through AWS was something that was announced, I think that was earlier this year or maybe late 2017. So it's not like Amazon doesn't know blockchain is there. Amazon's taking advantage of blockchain. And in fact, this speaks to something that's been going on recently in tech journalism in general, is that now there is a different conversation between, are you talking about blockchain or are you talking about cryptocurrency? If you are, say, marketing your company, you need to differentiate between that. I mean, if you're a cryptocurrency, you are inherently using blockchain. But if you are just a blockchain company, you may not be using cryptocurrency, right? Or you may not be implementing effectively a cryptocurrency. And this is a point that needs to be brought up, that there's a differentiation there. Okay, when you're talking about cryptocurrency, yes, you are talking about blockchain. But when you're talking about blockchain and you're using that word specifically, you might not be talking about a cryptocurrency, which I think creates a lot of confusion for people. I mean, that's been the nature of this technology since it started and since we've been talking about it. And I've been in the space for, come 2019, it will be pretty much a decade. Okay, is that, most people can't wrap their heads around the terminology. Like, is Bitcoin the cryptocurrency or is it the network? Well, it's both, and people just can't grasp it. Okay, but anyway, I think that getting down to brass tacks with these terms, like being really, really particular with these terms, is an important thing to do. Now, let's be really clear on this. And I've said this, and there have been predictions over the years. We've covered them, and every time I come out and say, guess what? Once again, they were wrong, and I get proven right pretty much every time. I am open to ever being wrong, but I'm just saying that I get proven right every time. Amazon will not accept Bitcoin. Amazon will not accept Bitcoin. They might create their own little, more traditional, shall we say, cryptocurrency beyond something like Amazon Coin, which is totally digital and just done on servers. Okay. They might end up doing something where, but it'll be an Amazon created and branded product. It will not be Bitcoin. Now, if Amazon comes out with its own cryptocurrency, real cryptocurrency based on blockchain, if they do that, will that bring up confidence within the cryptocurrency space in general? Sure, it will. I don't think that's unfair to say. But to somehow claim that Bezos, he's the richest man in the world, why would he need to get into Bitcoin? What, because the people that are into Bitcoin are going to end up besting him at some point? Fuck no. I mean, where were most people spending when Bitcoin was getting spent? Where were they initially spending it? They were getting, I don't even know what the numbers are, but the numbers had to be through the roof that for like eGifter and Gift, GYFT and so on, how many people were buying Amazon gift cards with Bitcoin? I mean, that they were doing tremendous business with that. And I know I was at the conferences for years where those two companies specifically, eGifter and Gift, were at every single one because they knew the money that would flow in because of that. So, I mean, people are going to spend their Bitcoin on Amazon, and that's just going to make Bezos richer. You get my point? He doesn't need, when you're the richest man in the world, you don't need shit. Right? He's not going to get into Bitcoin. He's not going to get into not like an investment position necessarily. He's not going to get into Ethereum. He's not going to get into whatever the hell you're talking about. Labs 126 at Amazon, they might come up with their own cryptocurrency. I'm totally open to that, and yes, that will help the broader the broader cryptocurrency space and blockchain space. But don't think that they're going to jump on Bitcoin. We'll be right back with more. Hey, I know what you're thinking. Wow, this is a great fucking show, and you know what? I agree with you, and I'm not just saying it because I'm the host. Woo! But I am the podcast champion, baby. And let me tell you, if you want to help out the podcast champion, you want to help out the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, and you want to make Sovryn Tech an even bigger show, here's how you do it. And don't worry, it's not for free, and you get something out of it. You go to Patreon. You go to patreon.com/Sovryn Tech, SOVRYN Tech. Patreon.com/Sovryn Tech. Become a Sovryn Tech patron, and you will get access to literally thousands of hours of bonus content. There's new content every week. You get to be in the live Q&A hangouts that we do every month. You get to access to the Wednesday Q&A. We do one every single week, and it goes a good hour strong, if not longer if needed, depending on how many questions there are. That's only for patrons, and all you got to do is at least $1 a month. Some do significantly more, and I'm honored by that. But become a patron, support the show, help it grow. Patreon.com/Sovryn Tech. And I thank you to all the patrons already out there and all of the ones to come. Patreon.com/Sovryn Tech. Woo! Let's get back to the show.
This week's online review.
It is time for this week's online review that so many people have been enjoying, where I find the best online reviews, the best products on the internet, the best products on the web. Okay? And I give you the review that will hopefully convince you, or maybe, honestly, maybe it's not the best product. Maybe it's a product you should stay away from. And this week's product comes with a warning in a review that I think we really need to read. And of course, but if you really do want it, even after you hear the review, you're still dying for it, or because after the review, you're just like, wow, that thing is amazing. I got to get it. Link is in the show notes. Okay. And you can get your hands on it. And this is for the Haribo sugar-free gummy bears, 5-pound bag, 5 pounds of gummy bears, sugar-free. Let's read this is. Holy shit. This is a 1-star review, a 1-star. So this comes with a warning. Let's see what they have to say. So, I mean, we all know what gummy bears are, right? The candy, 5-pound bag, that's a lot of gummy bears. Here's the title of it. Just don't, unless it's a gift for someone you hate. Whew. Reviewer is Christine E. Torok. Here we go. Verified purchase. At that, verified purchase. So they did buy these. Oh, man. Words cannot express what happened to me after eating these sugar-free gummy bears. The gummy bear cleanse. Sorry. The gummy bear cleanse. Sounds serious. If you are someone that can tolerate the sugar substitute, enjoy. If you are like the dozens of people that tried my order, run. First of all, for taste, I would rate these a 5. So good. Soft, true to taste, fruit flavors like the sugar variety. I was a happy camper. But with 2 T's. Not long after eating about 20 of these, all hell broke loose. I had a gastrointestinal experience like nothing I've ever imagined. Cramps, sweating, bloating beyond my worst nightmare. I've had food poisoning from some bad shellfish, and that was almost like a skip in the park compared to what was going on inside me. So she's talking about Stanley breaking in. She's talking about the sugar substitute that was used. Might have been maltitol, something like, or whatever, something like that. Then came the flatulence. Heavens to Murgatroyd. The sounds like trumpets calling the demons back to hell. The stench like 1,000 rotten corpses vomited. I couldn't stand to stay in one room for fear of succumbing to my own odors. But wait, there's more. What came out of me felt like someone tried to funnel Niagara Falls through a coffee straw. I swear my sphincters were screaming. It felt like my delicate starfish was... I'm sorry, it's terrible. Don't buy these. But let's read on. I just want to make sure you know not to get them. As much as we all love gummy bears, right? It felt like my delicate... It felt like my delicate starfish was a gaping maw, projectile vomiting a torrential flood of toxic waste. 100% liquid. Flammable liquid. Napalm. It was actually a bit humorous for a nanosecond, as it was just beyond anything I could imagine possible. And it went on for hours. I felt violated when it was over, which I think might have been sometime in the early morning of the next day. There was stuff coming out of me that I ate at my wedding in 2005. I had 5 pounds of these innocent-looking, delicious-tasting hell bears, so I told a friend about what happened to me, thinking it had to be some type of sensitivity I had to the sugar substitute, and in spite of my warnings and graphic descriptions, she decided to take her chances and take them off of my hands. Silly woman. All the same for her, and a phone call from her while on the toilet, because you kind of end up living in the bathroom for a spell, telling me she really wished she would have listened. I think she was crying. Her sister was skeptical and suspected that we were exaggerating. She took them to work. The sister now, Stallion is breaking in, the sister. Since there was still 99% of a 5-pound bag left. She works for a construction company where there are builders, roofers, house painters, landscapers, etc. Lots of people who generally have limited access to toilets on a given day. I can't imagine where all those poor men and women pooped that day. I keep envisioning men on roofs crossing their legs and trying to decide if they can make it down the ladder or if they should just jump. If you order these, best of luck to you. And please don't post a video review during the aftershocks. P.S. When I ordered these, The warnings and disclaimers and legalese were not posted. I'm not a moron. Also, not sure why so many people assume I'm a man. I am a woman. We poop too. Of course, our poop sparkles and smells like a walk in the meadows of wildflowers. Thanks for all the great comments. I've been enjoying reading them and so glad that the horror show I experienced from snacking on these has at least made some people smile. You know, Christine, what a sweetheart. I mean, she turned a frown upside down with that. So anyway, you can take her warning. You can look into it. Maybe you think you're not sensitive to the sugar substitute. Maybe you'll have better luck than the construction workers trying to get down the ladders. Link is in the show notes, folks. I'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Gummy bears standing here and there and everywhere.
Time now for 90 Seconds on Sex with Dr. Paul.
For years, people have assumed that the more a guy has to drink at any given time, the more trouble he's going to have getting an erection. Well, that's what the research showed in the 1970s. However, recent studies have cast doubt on those earlier findings. We now know that at a blood alcohol level of 0.1, which is significantly beyond the legal limit for intoxication, there are no major negative alcohol-related effects on a penis, except for the guy having to whip it out more often to relieve himself. It's likely that a lot of males will get far more wasted after a night of beer pong than that 0.1 blood alcohol level that they allow in research studies. So it's still a safe bet to assume that alcohol will have a negative effect on the erection of a man who is seriously drunk. Now, another factor to consider is the timing of when a man has sex. Now, if he's recently been drinking and his blood alcohol level is still rising, there might be less of an effect on his erection than an hour or more after he's stopped drinking and his blood level is dropping or declining. The body seems to experience more fatigue and depression as blood alcohol level is declining. So that's when drinking moderate levels of alcohol might have the most negative effect on an erection.
For more, visit 90secondsonsex.com.
The Climax.
It is time for the Climax, which is the part of the show that's been a part of the show since the beginning, where I get to talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. Okay, I control this part of the show. Actually, I control the whole show in a very real way, unless you're a patron, because then I give you a lot. My patrons are my executive producers. But I can talk about whatever I want to here: a novel, TV show, comic book, or something. I mean, if you're new to this show, this is where I get to get geeky, or where I get to talk about a topic. Sometimes get philosophical. Originally, I planned on during this segment talking about, somebody sent in a very interesting article about Satanism that I was going to discuss. We're going to get into it. Longtime listeners know why maybe I would talk about such a thing. Of course, I'm an atheist, relax. But anyway, I'm going to save that for next week because it's kind of a longer article, but I really do want to give it the attention and time that it deserves. And I think it's actually a very interesting one from Lifehacker of all things. So anyway, I'll save that for next week's episode. But I do want to talk a little bit about, since this is the first 1 hour episode of Sovryn Tech, I kind of just want to take a couple minutes to get into, where Sovryn Tech is at right now and where we are going forward. And, maybe if you want more Sovryn Tech, if you're like, holy shit, I've been listening for years, where are my 2 hours? I want my 2 hours. Okay. I know you've already heard an ad, okay, for Patreon, where there's literally, and I'm not kidding, thousands of hours of content, and not just audio, all kinds of content for you to get access to. Even the other patrons on the community tab on Patreon share really, really great shit. I mean, they really do. Like, there's awesome stuff there. Great place to find news and everything. It's just a great place to hang out and share stuff if you want. But I want to talk about that and just say, okay, so for right now, I am getting a feel for how the 1 hour version of the show is going to take. All right. And how that's going to go going forward. So we might shift things up a bit week by week of what that's going to look like, and see how well I can compress and condense everything down to where it's 1 hour, because the 1 hour show, I think, is something that's going to be a little more palatable to, I talked about this a little bit of the beginning of the episode last week, where I think the 1 hour show will be a little more palatable for new listeners to jump on board. Okay. And it'll kind of force me to condense things down and really focus in on more specific stories. So I'm always open to your feedback on how you feel about the 1 hour show. You can there's the contact form. You can go to contact.zog.ninja to do that. You can email me at bbs@sovryntech.com if you want to do so as far as that. Of course, the best thing, if you really are missing some Sovryn Tech, you can become a Sovryn Tech patron, and you just go to sovryntech.com, SOVRYN tech.com, to do that. And you can do anywhere. There's different reward tiers, and you get extra stuff when you go higher. So there's the $1, which is the minimum, okay? And with the $1, you get access to, you get the Relationship Rhombus show, you get the Wednesday Q&A where you can ask me the questions and I'll spend an hour talking about questions. I mean, it goes for a good long while. So if you wanted more, that's a great way to get that. You get the live Hangout Q&A, which we just did the December one the other day. You get one of those a month. At some point, I might consider doing 2 a month if we get enough patrons to really warrant that. Okay, I mean, I have a lot of patrons. Like, I'm very pleased with the amount of patrons I'd love to have more. You can always have more, but I'm not complaining about the amount that I have. There's that. And if you go to the $5 reward tier, you actually get whole other podcast series. You get Game Talk. You also get, even though we might have some interesting ideas for Game Talk going forward, but you have Game Talk where I talk video games for a good 30 minutes or so. Then there's the User Podcast, which in a lot of ways is kind of my Cosmos. Okay, it's my little rendition of Cosmos and we get into philosophy, science, tech, all of it comes together, but it's like one topic at a time, and I really, really deep dive, and people have very much enjoyed the past two. The first one is about the beginning of the universe. The second one is about the sun. You may say, well, aren't those boring subjects? Oh, no. Wait till you hear User Podcast. These are far from boring subjects, and they have everything to do with you and your life even going forward. Anyway, all of this stuff is available to you on Patreon. Again, especially the User Podcast, just gotten rave reviews from the patrons that have listened to that. They absolutely fucking love it, and they can't wait for more. They're very heavily produced episodes. They take me a while to put together. And so, but if you want to jump on that, you can. So bottom line being, yes, you're losing an hour. We're going to try this out for a while. If it gets to the point, like I could have very easily this week gone, I really could have done the 2 hours. No problem. And there's plenty of news to do that. It's not like there's a lack of news. Okay. But if you really want more of me, if you want more of the Golden Stallion, and hey, I don't blame you. No, are you kidding? I can't listen to myself for 2 hours a week. I don't know how you do. No. But if you do want more of me, you can just become a patron, and you can get access to I come out with almost daily content. There's audiobooks available on the Patreon that I only do for patrons. Like right now we're going through William Moulton Marston's Emotions of Normal People. But there's other audiobooks that have come out, some classic anarchist work, because of course the Golden Stallion is an anarchist of anarchists, I dare say. And, just lots, there's so much content that comes out on that. I also do Sovryn Insights, where I write up, entire posts. I don't even want to call them blog posts. I mean, I like to think of them almost as essays. Okay, where treatises even, where I am breaking down a certain topic. Often it's historical or, archaeological, because a lot of people like it when I talk about history and so on, which we will do more of on the Sovryn Tech Prime episode like you're listening to now, even though we've broken down to an hour. Maybe some weeks we'll switch it up to where I have a specific segment where I can talk more about historical stuff. And that has a lot to do with tech, because tech is a part of everybody's lives, and it really always has been. It's just now it's obvious when everybody has a smartphone in their pocket, right? So anyway, I just want to implore you, that's what's going on. We'll try out this 1 hour format for a while. If you have complaints or anything like that, you get in touch with me. You give me the feedback, all right? I care about all of my listeners, and I want to know what's going on for you. So that's the score. If you want more Sovryn Tech, please hit up the Patreon. Believe me, there is plenty more for you to get access to. Or if you like the 1 hour format and you're pleased with it, let me know that too. I really want to hear about it. So that's all I want to end off with, is just to implore you, go ahead and communicate with me and let me know what you think. And just letting you know that this is a bit of an experiment. It's good to shake things up. So, all right, that's it for this week. Another 1 hour, of course, show coming next week. I will see all of you on the other side. All the hotness, baby. Woo.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com. That's SOVRYN tech.com. And connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.